This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. There is a technique that you can utilize to feel better, to have more mobility, to have more clarity, so many benefits. And this is something that's been around for 150 years. Many of us, myself included, only just learning about it. But it's funny, ever since I met him and learned about the technique, then I hear other people talking about it. We're referring to the Alexander technique, and he is somebody that practices this. It's changed his life and helps others with it as our professional of the year. As a neuromuscular and rehab specialist, he is Travis Chastain. He's back on the program with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. How are you today?
Excited to dig into this once again, and also to share some feedback we've got. Somebody has a question. Can we start with that?
Let's start with the question.
Beautiful. By the way, you can reach us anytime, question, comments, feedback, anything. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. This one comes from Katie in Naples, Florida. She says, my father had a knee replacement over the summer. Can this technique help with his healing and rehabilitation?
Absolutely. The Alexander technique is a great complement to your physical therapy, as well as in conjunction with after physical therapy, working on it for yourself. Yeah. A lot of the times when we have knee pain, we're also undergoing a lot of tension habits that are behind the knee pain a lot of the times. And the Alexander technique aims at reworking those things, right? Getting those tension patterns into a better place of balance, learning how to move more gracefully and effortlessly to take off the pressures off of those joints, right? So it's a very, very powerful aid in chronic knee pain. There's no doubt. No doubt.
When we talk about knee pain in general, what's going on there? So many different reasons we could have knee pain, but and on average, where would you be holding tension that would give you pain in your knee?
Well, I can give you a practical example from myself and from other clients that I've worked on. I think that's a good place to start.
Sure.
So when I'm having, let's say if I'm having some knee problems, if I've been going on a run or something like that, a lot of times you'll feel some tensions in your hamstrings, right? But behind that, there's also what we call in the Alexander technique a narrowing of the back. Okay, so if you're meant to have, let's say, this much width in your back, a narrowing would refer to too much tension in the back, pulling excessively towards the center and causing some pinching in places like the L5 joint, for example. And then when that happens, it's very amazing. That then moves into too much tension in the hamstrings, which then withdraws the support from the knee itself. So the muscles aren't supporting the knee and the ligaments around the knee optimally when your back isn't widening properly, for example. When you have too much tension in your back and your width, and you're also going to have too much tension in the back and your length. And that's going to withdraw that muscular tension from your legs, well, all your joints, frankly.
Wow. So
yeah.
Safe to assume if we've got some discomfort, we'll call it that, could be pain, could be just something's not right, or I don't feel stable on it. You know, I want to maybe go for a run or walking down steps, and your knees are everything. You don't want to fall. That could be potentially coming from your lower back.
Or at the very least that they're both kind of being like brothers fighting with one another, right? You know, they have like this little nasty codependent relationship where they've gotten to each other, where the leg ought to be releasing in opposition to the back, but they're moving towards one another in those respective joints instead. And that causes a whole host of problems because you just don't have the adequate space anymore, right? And you need to bring that into conscious control by recognizing Well, first of all, give yourself some time to listen to how it's designed.
Mm.
But then, give some instructions for the adequate spacing to return. Like in the Alexander technique, we have this invitation for the knees forward and away. And what that simply references is you have your lower back here. Let's say you have your knees here. When you're on a run, when you're on a walk, whether you're just standing or lying down, you want your knees and your upper legs to release away from your pelvis. So you're not getting all that jamming in there. Because if you do, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster, Steve, if you get that jamming there, because it's going to start causing all sorts of pulling in on your pelvis and twisting, and then your lower back's not going to get very happy with you, and then your neck's not going to get very happy with you, and your shoulders aren't going to get. I mean, it's one big kind of twist and torque in the whole plasticky structure of your fascial system that can happen in that space, right? Just giving a little invitation for the knees away can start to give your pelvis an opportunity to relax, find its balance, and then get the rest of your back in balance as well.
My eye opener ever since we met is that the pain and discomfort we have in our bodies is usually connected to something else. We just think it's localized. I got a pain in my shoulder. I got a pain in my knee. Maybe I stepped funny, or I reached back, backseat of the car to grab something, and that's what it's from. But more times than not, understanding you, there's other stuff going on here. It's not just the localized pain.
Oh, it's never just a localized pain. I mean, we're meant to function as a whole. We're meant to move as a whole, right? Evidence for that would be is when we're going for a walk, we have this bilateral relationship in our arms that's happening, right? They're happening together synchronicity. And it's happening also in the leg relationships, in the spirals of our back, right? So yeah, there's so many times where I'll feel, for example, a release in my calf before I feel a release in my shoulder if I'm having a tension in my shoulder. Right? Because of that relationship, because of those, by necessity, everything communicating so intimately with ourselves in order to function. Right? Our pain might be local, but our misuse is global. And when we can always remember that and have this kind of fun exploration of, let's remember that when I move holistically. So what am I doing in my whole self that's causing that hell that I'm feeling in my shoulder, right? That's always a good place to start. Like, wait, what am I doing in my whole self that's causing that knee to twitch or my lower back to feel the way it's feeling in this moment? What can I learn about it right now? Let's pause. Let's take a break and let's see how things can move. That's the key.
You've said before that many of us hold tension in the neck area, upper shoulders, and all of that. For all the stuff that we deal with, call it the knee, call it the shoulder, or the elbows, whatever it might be. This is not scientific, but just I'm curious to illustrate this point. What percentage would you say the neck, the shoulders, that area plays a role in the other physical challenges we have? 100% being obviously, it's everything. Everything's connected to the neck and the shoulders and the tension that you hold up there. Yeah, guesstimate. What do you think?
Well, I never had anybody who came to me with knee pain that didn't have the habit of tightening their neck and pulling their head back and down. I never had anybody who came to me for shoulder pain who didn't have the habit of tightening their neck and pulling their head back and down. I mean, the thing it's kind of hard to say it's localized because it's not. Like when we get in the tension here, you get in this compression in your whole back, right? There's a misalignment in the entire back that has to be addressed. Right? But, just by getting a little freedom here, just by inviting a little freedom way up here in your neck, because you're so intimately connected, that inevitably starts causing a stretch reflex in the rest of the back. And then inevitably starts causing a little bit more widening. It just happens because that's how you were designed to be. Poles going away from one another, head away from the tail, the shoulders away from the shoulders, hips away from the hips, knees away from the lower back. Unfortunately, we tend to do the other way. We tend to get in on ourselves here, in on ourselves there. It's always going in.
Now, you referenced, Travis, where we pull our heads back. What's going on there? Because so many, now I'm seeing more and more people that are more hunched over looking at their devices, if you will.
Right. Okay. I'll show you that. Yeah. So I'll turn as if I'm looking at my device for a second.
Yep.
Okay. So pay attention to the back of my head here in relationship to my neck. And let's say I'm reading this thing here. And I get pulled down here in my chest while I'm reading. But do you see this relationship here and what's happened? In the collapse here, do you see how it changed my head relationship here in relationship to my neck here?
Yeah.
Right. And so FM called the tightening of the neck muscles here, which causes this pull back and down of the head against the spine here. But then it'll transform itself into something like this. And then let's say you try to fix this through doing a lot of strength exercises and whatnot to get you upright, but you haven't really dealt with the tension, so you just added a different tension on top of that tension to get yourself back up to here, which is what he observed. Like a lot of the times, that imbalance just gets replaced with a different imbalance and a different tension, and we get more into a military posture, for example, like really held in our rib cage, holding ourselves up like so. It's still the same thing, right? That tension in the neck is a result of the head not properly balancing on the spine between the front and the back levers of the body. And if you can just find that balance between those two front and back levers, a whole lot of things start to change rather positively.
I don't want to minimize anything, but it's looking at you, and I get it because I look at myself in the mirror. I catch myself. I'm like, oh, you have the worst posture ever, you know. And I have a friend, she's a trainer. She goes, shoulder proud, shoulder proud. So it's like, meaning you look horrible. Stand up.
Yeah, and then what do? And what do you do? Yeah,
right. It's an unnatural pose.
Right, exactly.
And like you said, in theory, you think you're doing something good, but you're just doing something different. It's not better, it's just different. But my point is that it's not a big difference from this to this to this, all of that, but it is a radical difference in terms of what it does to the way we feel. Huge.
Yeah.
I don't think we realize it.
And we're after something bigger than posture too. Posture is part of it for sure. Absolutely. There's no doubt. But it's the function behind the posture that's important, right? It's like, are you holding yourself in that space artificially? Or is there a natural ease that's coming about you in that space? Maybe you've been down here for 20 years and you can't naturally be up here for very long. Okay, well, fine. That's okay. There's no problem with that. But can we learn to be down here with a little bit less effort and forcing and pushing and pulling? Right? Can we just, invite a little bit of length through our thinking? Just invite a little bit of whatever is pulling us in this direction to do a little bit less. And then, just let it gradually correct itself in the time and in the space that it can, one little micro shift at a time, right? See, that's where the improvement of function is. Being held down here is a negative impact on your function. Being held up here is a negative impact on your function. You're not breathing well in one direction or the other. But, if you're used to being held here and you learn just to hold a little bit less there in your neck, then that's an improvement of your function. And that eventually gets you into a higher space in terms of your posture, right? The goal isn't to be upright. The goal is to be beautifully balanced. Again, I keep coming back to the child because the children just know how to do this automatically, right? You see them sitting, maybe watching a television or something like that.
Yeah.
Playing with a toy, they're very engaged. They have this beautiful alignment from their sits bones all the way to their head.
Perfect
Right? It's
posture.
perfect posture.
Travis, I didn't realize that until you just said it. And I'm getting visuals of just like seeing, my kids are in elementary school, then junior high, and they're sitting there, it's upright. I'm like, well, look at them. They're very focused on what they're doing. Where does it go? I don't mean this in a negative way. Where does it go wrong in
Oh my
terms of
gosh.
our posture? Or is it
That's such a
life,
question.
energy, trauma, all of that?
I have no idea. I mean, we always ask ourselves this in the Alexander technique, and everybody always asking, "Oh, where on earth did we get into this trouble?" That's the mystery. We don't know.
My feeling is, having studied this, I'm far from an expert in anything related to this, but we all have childhood trauma. We've all been through things growing up. And some of them are really big. Some of them are small, but they could have a major impact on us. And I got bullied on the playground, whatever it may be. That 7-year-old sitting on that little chair at their desk in the classroom, they haven't really interpreted any of that stuff yet. And the only reason I even say any of this is when you say holding tension, maybe you're holding tension that's connected to something way back in your life. If you study energy, we could be holding on to energy from childhood that's holding us back. It seems that those things could be holding us back from proper posture and feeling much better. And that's where the tension is coming from. Just a thought. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's certainly true in my life. Yeah. I mean, I think we all get in the Alexander technique, we call it faulty sensory perception, right? We get into this, let's say, paradigm of self where, and this is where the real challenge is a lot of the times the student will come and they might be down here, for example. The problem is not that they're down here. The problem is they don't actually know that they're down here. A lot of the times this feels normal. This feels straight.
Mm-hmm.
And normal to us in the minds, as far as the mind is concerned, equates to straight. You can be way off, but your mind is going to equate it to straight. That's the real problem, right? That's the real challenge. And yeah, it can come from a faulty paradigm. If you're tall like me, getting a little smaller to fit in, maybe might not be as threatening. If you're smaller, it might be the reverse.
Yep.
Who knows? God knows. I don't know.
But if whatever the reason may be, we're feeling discomfort and pain from all of this, and we don't even realize it. It becomes the norm. Even if I've got a friend whose mom walks around bent over. Like her back progressively has gotten worse. She's not even that old. She's in her 70s. And she she walks like a hunchback. And that's just her posture, the way it's been. After time, she doesn't even know she's doing it. Like my friend has to remind her, Mom, take it easy. The way you're walking, where are you walking? Be careful, because she doesn't realize that she's doing it, because that's, whatever is going on within her body. But to your point, we normalize it, thinking that, well, okay. I see, even the little stuff, the little looking in the mirror is like, wow, I never realized, my posture is not the best.
Right. No, you don't know it until you see it.
Yeah.
Right. The subjective just doesn't tell us the truth, right? It doesn't tell us the whole truth, right? I think that was the genius that the Alexander technique discovered, is that there's a way of thinking that overcomes the faulty sensory experience. And again, that faulty sensory experience is based on this false sense of how we're actually holding ourselves, what space we're actually being in, right? And it just turns out that the only thing that you have to do to start moving the needle in the right direction is to stop doing so much. Stop trying to feel your way out of the trouble, because that ironically just gets you more into the trouble. And just give these little light wishes holistically. You know, FM used to say to all his students, and we always say to all of our students, this set of words, these directions. Let the neck be free. Let the head release forward and up. And let the whole back lengthen and widen. But don't try to do it, all right? You know, just give the invitation and then let it go. Right. Right, Steve. And it's like tossing a ball up into the air. Right? You just give it and you let it go. I noticed it. Did you notice it in yourself there? That was cool.
I felt myself doing it. It's like, because I just want to crack my neck. Like, oh, I just did it. Like, just, there's always that tension that I know it's there. I know it's there, and it's probably presenting issues here and there. But easier said than done. It's easy to say, straighten your back, raise your head up, lengthen your spine, widen your back.
Well, you know, FM would say, and I would agree, I think it's been fairly proven at this point, that when we get into these habits of tension, it's actually impossible. It's actually impossible to directly get ourselves out of them. That's what FM was experiencing. He tried like mad, and he failed every time trying to fix his postural network so that he wasn't putting all that pressure on his larynx. What he decided was he had to change how he thought in movement. He had to change how he thought in response to stimuli. That was the only way around it. Right? The only way around it is to stop trying so hard. The only way around it is to leave yourself alone for a while before you get out of that chair. Recognize there's a choice to do something else. Something really cool about recognizing that there's a choice to do something else, Steve. It leaves you a little bit neutral in your nervous system. It gives you a blank slate to start working with. Right? This is what inhibition means in the Alexander technique. You got to give yourself a choice consciously, which is true, by the way. Just recognize the truth. Before you get out of that chair, before you do this interview, whatever it is, just recognize there's a choice to do something else. Even if you have no intention of doing that something else. But if you just recognize it, that can help us let go of the tension just a little bit. Recognize there's a choice to do something.
Well, it's along with many other principles that if you dream it, it will happen. If you if you're thinking it, that's what will happen. For example, somebody says, I got offered a job interview coming up tomorrow. I'm not qualified for that job. I'm going to blow it. There's no way I'm going to get that. You may be so qualified for it, but you're beating yourself up thinking you're not going to get it. And then you go for the interview, and more times than not, if you're thinking you're going to mess it up, you're going to mess it up, and you're probably not going to get the job. You're creating that. So it almost sounds with this, instead of just saying, I'm going to just sit up straight and that's going to fix the problem. No, you have to believe in that and almost make your body do it using your mind. Again, this is just the starting point. The technique runs way deeper in terms of getting that done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like a quote that FM Alexander always said is, notice that ease in which you're after, that effortlessness in which you seek. Think that it's already yours.
Yes.
Right? Think that it's already yours. Now, you might not get it today. You might not get it tomorrow. You might not get it next week. But you keep inviting the freedom without the agenda. That's the key.
It's almost like you're manifesting it in a way.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, there's the conscious intention. There's the noticing where you're easy. There's the noticing how these directions are moving. There's getting curious about what's interfering. Right? So you're consciously doing a practical work. Well, I feel a little tight in my shoulders. Okay, cool. What am I doing in my whole self that's causing this? Let's work with that a little bit. Let's leave ourselves alone and see what moves. When you leave yourself alone, something always moves. When you leave yourself alone, something always moves. Might be here. Might be here. But you leave yourself alone, something will move. We're so used to moving in the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, act and react, that when you can mentally get yourself to the point of giving yourself permission to be in the parasympathetic, then things can start to let go. And then it'll teach you through that movement of letting go. Oh, maybe I was twisting to my left. Well, I'm releasing somehow to my right. Right? It seems so fantastic to move from the parasympathetic, but it's only because we're so used to acting and reacting all the time and doing instead of just allowing things to be done.
The big difference between manifesting something and hoping or believing it's coming your way, the difference between this is there are techniques, they've been proven. Listen, I can manifest $1 million, believe it's coming my way. I don't know what's going to happen. This is different. You have a proven technique here with much time behind it, and all the principles within. How do we connect with you, Travis? Somebody's got some questions, or even with Katie today with her dad and the knee replacement. How do we find you?
Yeah, you can reach me at my website, www.bodymindbalanceco.com. You can also email me directly at bodymindbalanceco@gmail.com.
The more we've talked about this, the more I've run into people, even on podcasts, who have mentioned this.
It's a great technique, my friend. If everybody knew about the Alexander technique, there'd be very, very few. There would be very little need for back surgeons.
And maybe chiropractors too.
At the very least, I would say that chiropractors should be used more for an immune boost rather than I'm in desperate pain, I need to get out of it kind of deal.
Gotcha. Always great talking with you. It's just amazing what our bodies do, what they're capable of, and also how we can mess that up unknowingly. And our bodies compensate for it because it needs to, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. And there's a way to get around that. BodyMindBalanceCO.com. Do I have that right?
You got it right, friend.
Beautiful. Travis, thank you for being here again today.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you.
Likewise. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.